My dear YouTube community, I would like to talk today about, I already announced it, the inner critique. The inner critique is something I have accumulated in my life where people have criticized me. And I'm not talking about being criticized at a moment in my adult life, which could be confoundable with what the inner critique is because my inner critique is something which was raised with me at times and at moments where I was building, let's say, my emotional life, when I was understanding how I am, who I am, where I belong to, what my identity is, from by whom I'm being applauded by, who told me what I'm worth, who told me what I'm good at, who told me that that I have dignity in myself, all right, that I'm valuable, that I'm loved, yeah. So this inner critique was raised on the absence of appreciation, of love, of being applauded, of being promoted, of things being explained to me, of being asked how I feel. All these things were absent. And instead of this, where I was or criticized or I was exactly not shown the way out, let's put it like this. I was not shown how I'm loved. I was not shown how to resolve conflict. I wasn't shown how to deal with my emotions. There was nobody who asked me. There was no support system. So I drew the conclusions that I am not, that I'm not worth, that I'm not worthy of being listened to, that I'm not worthy of being loved, that I'm not worthy of being appreciated, and that it's not important my voice or my opinion or expressing my doubts or whatever it is. So if there have been situations in my life where hurt was present, in a way of abandonment, in a way of sadness, in a way of loss, in a way of anger, which was present in my family maybe, then I most likely have guarded all these feelings, these negative feelings of guilt, of shame, of not being enough, in this box. I call this my safe. I used that already in previous videos. Do you remember? And all these negative feelings, which is a simple strategy of human beings to guard myself from negative emotions, to constantly carry them around with me, and that these emotions in turn determine my life, not so much informing me about something going on, which what is emotions for, you know, telling me that something occurs that needs to be talked about, something occurs which needs to be shed tears about, that something occurred which needs to be clarified, that something occurred that where I have to put limits and say, oh no, not further, you know, and which causes anger in return. So I need to see what happened in my life, that I guarded all these negative feelings, which we all do, and how many let's say skill sets I have received from the ones who with whom I have grown up, which made me understand or deal with my feelings, which gave me coping strategies to regulate myself emotionally. Okay. if I have received explicitly critique in my life, like an outspoken or be it not so outspoken, I might have guarded these things in this safe. And in the end, besides of protecting me at the point when I received that, these feelings also show up at some point later, since I don't open this box because it needs to be guarded in there to not like get me into confusion again, or sadness where I can't make the connection anymore. So these feelings will show up at some point where either these old feelings are being triggered, or when things just don't work on a relational level. And relation could be with myself, me feeling enough and being able to reach my objectives, my goals, or could be in relation to the projects obviously I'm having, to a relationship which is a close relationship, a loving relationship, which is always a good ground for opening our hearts up and opening up this box, because we are opening up our feelings more to a person we love or we want to get into a more intimate relationship with. Can also be very close friends, what we have to work ourselves through. But usually the intimate relationships are the perfect ground for opening up this entire box. Or they can come out in a working relationship with superiors or with people whom we are in charge of. So this box will show up in be it the way it'll be, how strong these emotions were, how often this occurred, or on the other hand, how many skills I was given to deal with emotions. So these are going to be the levels to which they are going to be strongly showing up later in our lives. Okay, so these emotions are guarded in here, of making me feel that I'm not enough, of making me feel that I'm not loved, of sadness or abandonment, which has never been outspoken, which was just like, I saw this probably and I just assumed this to be my reality. And so I just guarded this as a normal in my life. So if I have lived more stronger or less stronger, the critique or negative moments in my life which were emotionally charged, these moments don't have to come up by themselves anymore or be remembered. They only come up in relationships and in conflict situations. And now we come to this to the point I was wanting to talk about in this video, or they come up in my inner dialogue, where I have interiorized the entire critique I have received, and I'm just repeating these feelings, the way I think about myself, the way I think about relationships, the way I think about my surrounding. And I don't have to be told anymore that I'm not enough, that I will never reach, that I can never overcome and all these things. And that I just assume that it is, and it affects massively, obviously, my self-esteem. It affects the way I'm projecting myself into this world. It affects the way how I'm capable of dealing with new pressure, relationship conflicts, conflicts in the working area or with other people wherever I'm out, in organizations, in teams, in friends, in my church, wherever it is. So I'm having this box with all these guarded feelings, and I'm having this interiorized this idea of how I am, and that I am not enough, and that I will never be, and this guarded sadness, for example, this guarded not being loved. And I don't need to be told anymore that I am not, although I might find people who will all the time reflect this to me, because I do manifest this again in the world. But what for this video is important to recognize is that the inner critique exists, and that this inner critique is old, and it was raised on early experiences where I have learned to relate to myself, to relate to others, and especially to relate to people who applaud me, who tell me, oh, you're good, you did this fine, great what you did there. And obvious more and more in the relationships where I'm more open to love, and where I show myself to be more vulnerable. Important to recognize that it is there, when it comes up, right? Just to recognize it, just to understand it is there. There is something where I'm giving myself negative messages that I can't, I will never, that I'm sad, I feel I can't overcome myself, I feel stuck, I can't get into my projects, I can't start this dream, this vision I'm having of how my life should be, or even getting into let's say satisfying relationships, be it in the workplace or be it in a relational setting, like in a partner setting. And recognizing that it is there, recognizing what are the voices this inner critique is bombarding me with, because it's a silent process, it could be just a feeling of, oh, I will never be able to do this, wherever you give yourself these negative messages that you can't, that you will never, that it is too difficult, that I can't overcome myself, that I'm not worth it, or that I'm not loved, and that I don't belong, and things like this. This is the moment where the inner critique is active. And you got to be very careful to not feed them. And this is through mindset. This is through how I now deal with it. Okay? This inner critique, he or she, whatever, whose ever voice this is, it's also very helpful to find out whose voice this is, if you can give this voice a face or a body or a way of how this voice treats me and on whom it reminds me. This is very helpful to say, you are not going to work longer in my life. Now I'm in charge, and I'm going to tell this critique that I can, while you tell me I can't, that I'm worthy while you tell me I'm unworthy, that I'm telling myself I love myself, I am much worth, while you told me you will never, you are not loved. That I tell this inner voice, you're telling me that you're abandoned and that you're not gonna be ever part of, So that's the moment when I have to tell this inner voice, I'm going to be here with you and for you, and I'm gonna not gonna abandon you, and I will hold you. Do you remember I mentioned all this in my last videos about the holding the inner child, about strong emotions coming up? This is the same thing with the inner critique. I have to understand what is the role this inner critique is, how is this inner critique exercising its power inside of me, for me to be able to first recognize it, second to shut it up, to, get out of here, and then to take care of myself. And it's this box. And it's hard. I know it's hard. And then to be present. And then to hold this inner child, which is all these former emotions, which are all of this kind, of the critique kind, of not somebody not being taking care of me, that I still keep on abandoning myself. Yeah? And to learn this. Identify, get that guy or that woman out of there, and now I'm in charge. Now I am the one responsible for my feelings, for my thoughts, and for my actions. And this is when the inner critique is not in charge anymore. This is when I start to be in charge, right? The substrat, the ground on which the critique grew is now also the ground for perfectionism. You got to be very careful with perfectionism, okay? There's the critique, and I say the counterpoint of critique, or which belongs to the critique, is our perfectionism. At the moment that we were criticized a lot, that somebody was, or at the moment when we grew up, people were not available to us. People did not affirm us in that we are loved, that we are important, that we are there, and that we're going to make it. We might have developed ways of dealing with critique and with inner critique, which is already me giving it to me, myself, which is like trying to counteract, this dark side, and showing our gold medal. This gold medal of my skills and of where I'm really, really, really good at, where all my abilities, where all my skills, where all what I'm doing really good grew on, is the other side of the dark side. So it's a really good side in reality, this golden medal. But if this dark side is not being contacted, this box where all my strong feelings are in is not being contacted. And one way of doing is getting in touch with my inner critique, right? Where this side is not contacted, it's going to pop up. It's going to obstruct my ways, my plans, my visions, my relationships, my leadership, all these things. Be careful with perfectionism. Yeah, perfectionism is just a way of saying all the time, no, I'm not bad. No, I'm not unworthy. No, I can do things perfectly. No, I can do things at all. Okay? And it is like paddling in the void, yeah, and not getting in contact with this box with all the hurt emotions, which I can hold today. Just the inner child can't hold it, like my inner self from back then can't hold it, but I can do it now. I can get in contact now. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. Yeah, nobody wants to do it, but if you do it, there's so much gain in there, especially what concerns vulnerability, especially what concerns achievements, especially what concerns happiness, especially what concerns satisfying relationships, being empathetic, being vulnerable, being there for others in a way like I am there as I am there for myself. So there's a relation to the inner critique. I hope you liked it. I hope it wasn't too complex. If you want to subscribe, I'm christinajunge. I'm a love and leadership coach, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you want YouTube to promote this kind of content, if you think this is important also for other people, you can subscribe, you can recommend me, invite your friends, and you can also give me a like so YouTube will know that this is of importance, what I'm saying. I love you all. Thanks for listening. I'm looking forward to being with you in the next video. God bless you. Ciao, my loves.